am standing in a country the US government told me not to visit, not suggested I skip, not gently recommended I reconsider, told me in official government language that if something goes wrong here, they cannot help me, that the embassy is closed, that there are no evacuation plans, that I am, in the most diplomatic phrasing possible, completely on my own. And the person standing next to me, explaining which street food stall has the best lamb kebabs, is from Ohio. Here is what nobody tells you about the State Department's do not travel list. Every single year, hundreds of thousands of Americans visit these exact countries anyway. Some of them are reckless, some of them are journalists, and some of them come back saying it was the most unexpectedly beautiful trip of their lives. I want to be very clear before we go any further. I am not telling you to ignore government warnings. Some of these places carry real, serious danger. But I am telling you that the full picture is almost always more complicated than a government advisory can capture in 2 paragraphs. So let us look at that full picture together. And here is my first question for you. Have you ever looked at the red zones on a travel map and felt more curious, not less? Because if you have, you are not alone, and you are definitely in the right place. Destination 1. Cuba. Cuba sits at level 2 on the State Department advisory. Exercise increased caution. That sounds manageable. But for Americans, Cuba is a different kind of problem. Since 1962, the US has maintained strict restrictions on American travel to Cuba. You cannot just buy a ticket and go. You need to travel under one of 12 authorized categories, with the most commonly used one being support for the Cuban people. What does that mean in practice? It means you cannot stay at government-owned hotels. You cannot eat at government restaurants. You are supposed to spend your money with private Cuban businesses and individuals. And here is what a traveler from Denver told me about her trip last year. She said she expected crumbling poverty and Cold War gloom. What she found was a city that smelled like salt and exhaust and something sweet she still cannot identify. Musicians playing on every corner. People who wanted to talk, not because they were paid to, but because a real American visiting their neighborhood was still, to them, genuinely remarkable. She also said she felt watched every single day and would not go back until the political situation changes. Both things were true at once. Estimated cost for 1 week, around $1,500 to $2,200, including flights. Destination 2. Russia. Russia is now level 4. Do not travel. The updated advisory from December 2025 specifically warns of wrongful detention by security officials, arbitrary enforcement of laws, and the ongoing war in Ukraine creating unpredictable risk. This is not a warning to take lightly. Several Americans have been detained in Russia in recent years on charges that outside observers described as having no credible legal basis. And yet, Americans still go. Mostly dual nationals visiting family, some journalists, a few travelers who frankly should have reconsidered. One traveler I spoke with, who lived in Moscow during the advisory period and has since left, described it this way. He said the city itself never felt dangerous in the street-level sense. He said it felt watched. He said he developed a habit of never saying certain words inside his apartment. He said the paranoia became its own kind of exhausting. He does not glamorize it. But he also says the Russia that exists in American media and the Russia he walked through every day were 2 countries that barely resembled each other. This is the second destination, where I want to ask you something. How much of what you know about a country came from being there, and how much came from a screen? Estimated cost if you somehow got there. Flights have become extremely limited and expensive, often $2,000 or more one way through indirect routes. Destination 3. Iran. Iran is level 4. Do not travel. The State Department warning is stark. Americans, including dual nationals, have been wrongfully detained by the Iranian government for months and sometimes years. The government does not recognize dual nationality. If you are arrested, consular access is routinely denied. This is a real risk. It is documented. It is not exaggerated. And yet, before the escalation of tensions in early 2026, thousands of travelers from Western countries visited Iran annually and described it as one of the most genuinely hospitable places they had ever been. A travel writer who visited Tehran in 2024 described a moment that I keep thinking about. She was lost, clearly confused, map out on a street corner. Within 90 seconds, 3 different people had approached her to help, one of whom invited her family for dinner that same evening. She went. She says it was the best meal of her entire trip. She also says she spent the entire time aware that a single wrong encounter with the wrong official could end everything. The gap between the government of Iran and the people of Iran is, by many traveler accounts, one of the widest they have ever encountered anywhere. I want to be honest with you here. Given the current US-Iran conflict, as of 2026, travel to Iran right now is genuinely dangerous in a way that goes beyond the usual advisory language. I'm telling you what travelers experienced before this moment, not recommending you test it right now. Destination 4. Venezuela. Venezuela sits at level 4. Crime, civil unrest, kidnapping, and poor emergency services are all cited. This is another place where the warning and the reality exist in complicated parallel. Venezuela has some of the most stunning geography on Earth. Angel Falls, the world's highest waterfall. The Tepuy Plateaus that inspired the landscape of the movie Up. The Caribbean coastline near Cumana that barely appears in any travel publication. A photographer who spent 3 weeks there in 2024 told me he never once felt personally threatened. He also told me he would never go back without a local contact he trusted completely and would never carry visible camera equipment on the street. The safety reality is real. The beauty is also real. This is not a contradiction. It is just a complicated country going through a very difficult period of its history. Estimated cost. Venezuela is extremely cheap once you are inside the country. Budget around $800 to $1,200 for a week, including flights, which remain available through limited connections. Destination 5. Belarus. Belarus is level 4 since the political crackdown following the 2020 elections. Arbitrary detention, civil unrest, and spillover threat from the war in Ukraine. Belarus does not come up often in these conversations, which is exactly why it is interesting. Before 2020, Minsk was quietly becoming one of Eastern Europe's more underrated cities. Beautiful Soviet architecture, a functional, clean metro system, restaurants that were legitimately excellent and startlingly affordable. Americans who visited before the advisory escalation describe a place that felt frozen in a very specific kind of amber. Not dangerous, not hostile, but aware, careful, like a city that knew it was being watched and had learned to carry that quietly. One traveler described seeing a protest starting near a central square and watching the crowd simply dissolve within seconds when a single police vehicle turned the corner. No confrontation. Everyone just gone. He said he understood something about life under that kind of pressure that he had never understood before from reading about it. Estimated cost when viable. Flights through Warsaw or Vilnius. Budget around $1,200 to $1,800 for a week. Here is what I want you to walk away with today. The Do Not Travel list is not a list of boring places. It is a list of places with complicated, real, human stories that most travel content is too cautious to touch. Some of these places are genuinely dangerous right now and should stay on that list. Others have warnings that were accurate when written but describe conditions that have shifted on the ground. Most of them fall somewhere in the middle. What they all have in common is that they are worth understanding, even if you never set foot in any of them. Next week, we are going somewhere even more extreme. A place where the warning is not a suggestion, where the government will actively detain you if you try to enter, and where a small number of Americans have found ways to get in anyway, for reasons that will genuinely surprise you. If this made you think differently about a place you thought you already knew, subscribe. We put out a new video every week, and drop in the comments the country from today's list that surprised you most. I read every single one.